has 35 years of experience in human resource management and development. During this long professional journey, he has worked with 6 companies across different industries such as engineering, petrochemicals, specialty chemicals, glass, shipping ports, logistics, and specialty packaging. India has witnessing the phenomenon of globalization, and one common thread of Dileep's experience is about transformation to cope with the competition and significant changes in the business environment. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Dileep Joshi, Global CHRO, EPL Limited. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Dileep Joshi?
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Backbenches? Okay, great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction and having me here. I have 3 challenges. First one is that it's a post-lunch session, so managing the engagement of people. Second one is that what I'm going to discuss here, looking at the profiles of the participants, most of it you already know, okay? So I'm going to talk about something which you already know, so I don't know how much of that is going to be interest to you. And the third and the biggest challenge is what I wanted to say is already covered in the first 3 sessions, you know. So I hardly have anything to really present here, but having come here, let me do a justice to the presentation. So if you see the topics which are mentioned in the brochure, I have broadly classified them as social accountability in the context of employees. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, I need to have it? Okay. You're going ahead. Which one is the forward one?
This one is the forward, this one
Okay.
is the back.
So if you really look at this whole framework, labor laws provide the basic requirement. And if you are not really meeting the basic requirements, then it's actually a sort of red flag. And a lot of organizations actually struggle to do even the legal requirements. So for example, I remember the days when people used to say in the industries, small scale industries especially, the minimum wage used to be the maximum wage, okay? And somewhere the Supreme Court had to tell them that if you can't pay the minimum wage, then you shut the business. And that's where that discussion stopped. Otherwise, there used to be discussion saying that we can't really afford minimum wages. Starting from there, so there are critical compliances, like you have Provident Fund and the minimum wages and all those things. And there are, which are, I would say, if you have to do ABC kind of thing, so over time there is a limit. So I'm from a manufacturing industry, so most of my references are from the manufacturing industry. So over time, it's something, you know, that non-compliance, maybe some people would like to have it in the employees because they get more income. But then, so therefore, you know, Mia Bibi Raji to kya kare kaji. So, you know, both employer and employee love that and they continue. But if you really believe that this is not only a compliance issue, but I live this value. I want to do this because this is my policy and this is my intent, then it takes a different kind of orbit. And there are many nowadays compliance softwares available. You can use them, and there are many agencies where they can outsource the work for you. But at the end of the day, somebody has to really see whether the outsourcing agency or that software is actually doing the job effectively. If that is not periodically reviewed, then you will always have some surprises coming in here. Now, moving from labor law standards to social accountability, I think these are evolved over a period of time. And as one of the speakers mentioned earlier, Tata Group has been the pioneer. I mean, they have done much ahead of what the legal requirements were, or maybe something ahead of time. So let me give some example of how we look at it and how we should be looking at it. So there is a maternity act benefit. So roughly around 6 months maternity leave one would have. Suppose there is a single parent So there is no mention of single parent in the Maternity Act. Would you still go ahead and offer that? That's the organization policy. So one has to take a reference from here and say, okay, this is a genuine case, and I would extend that. Going further, recently I read in one of the CHRO WhatsApp group, the question was that, we have a same-sex couple, and one of them has applied for a maternity leave because they have a child, so should we offer it or not? I said, why should there be a question? Because you are again coming from a compliance mode. It's a genuine need. You have to verify, validate, and then offer a maternity benefit to the respective person who is working with you. So I think that's the difference between the minimum requirement and how we look at as a social compliance. Why it is important? If you look at, and I don't know whether it's appropriate to mention specific example, but when Tata's acquired Air India, they are not much of a fuss. Because if you take the opposition party, their whole job is to criticize government and all the policies and all the deeds. So there was no controversy. In fact, many old generation people felt, it's a right decision because originally it was a Tata Group airline which went to government and it's come back. So there was a lot of happiness about it. But more than that, there is a confidence that all the stakeholders' interests will be appropriately and justly and fairly handled by the management. So I think, and there are good times and there are not so good times. When you are looking at it as a responsible part of the society, when you do not have so good times, society also is, compassionate with you. They also have a sympathy. So that's where the long-term sustainability part comes in. So when in the context of employees, what does the topic come? And I think all of you are familiar with this. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We talked a lot about this in the morning sessions. Health, safety, and working hours. This was, apart from the working condition, the health part was really highlighted during the COVID pandemic, how all the organization took care of the employees, what were the safety practices. And I will tell you my experience that we make actually tubes which are required for toothpaste, medicines, and beauty and cosmetic products. So since we make tubes for pharmaceutical, we were actually got a quick permission for making the tubes. So that was one challenge in the first wave of COVID, but sort of giving confidence to people that you come to work and this is a safe place to work and we have taken adequate precaution was a big challenge. So we made film, what are the precautionary measures that we have taken, and most of the people who are running the machines, they are diploma holders, young people. So their parents had a bigger issue. The person is willing to come, but parents are saying, no, we can't really ask my son to go, we can't expose him to big risk. So that's where you have to give a confidence, and when we built a track record, then there was no much of an issue. Prevention of harassment, and in case there is harassment, what is the mechanism to deal with that? Prevention of child labor and forced labor. In most of the progressive organization, you will not find this issue. But if you have a supplier, you need to ensure that they don't violate this issue. That's the point that we need to look at. Freedom of association. Yes, the human rights and labor standards say that all employees have a right to form a union, they can form a group, and they can the group can represent them. And the grievance. Every person is unique, everybody has an expectation, and if your expectations are not met, you take it to the manager also doesn't solve it, then it becomes a grievance. So what is the mechanism that would resolve that issue? So these are the common topics. What is the challenge in this? So varying expectations of employees. That's one challenge, because unlike other standards, social accountability standards are contextual and there is a lot of interpretation issue. So let me give you, see, we are a global company, we have operations in 11 countries. So I visited one of the plant, our own company plant in China, and I was asking them, how is your experience working with the company? Of course, there was a translator. So the people said, it's a good company to work for. I said, why do you think it's a good company to work for? So they said, we get salary on time, we get all the benefits on time. Okay, whenever we want leave, we get the leave from the company. So that's why it's a good company, and our increments are taken care of on time. So basic needs. So what it means that in the context around, the industry around, maybe those things are not happening. So it's contextual. When I went to Poland and I asked them that, what's your feedback to the company? How is it working? So one of the persons said, we don't get weekly off. I said, how is that possible? There's no weekly off. So I asked the manager, so he said it's a rotating shift. So the weekly off comes on a working day. So in a Western world, having a weekly off on a Saturday, Sunday is very, very important. So what they were asking is that I want a weekly off on Saturday and Sunday, not on any other working day. So this is a sort of a contextual here. In India, if you talk about young generation, they want more cash in hand. If you look at people say above 45 and 50, they will say we want more retirement benefits. So if you see the expectations and standards are contextual. So the good news is that there are standards available. So there is something called SA 8000 one can adopt and get yourself validated. So that tells you what needs to be done. There are companies like SEDEX who actually audit your place and say that, okay, you are conforming to the social accountability standards. So how does it actually work? So you must have a policy. Then you should have a program, because you will have the policy also say that, okay, what's the desirable state? What is the current stage and what is the desired state? What's your program or initiatives to deliver that? Then we have to declare what is the outcome, and you must have evidence for that and get the external validation. That's the process companies follow, because having only good intention and having good practices is not good enough. We have to have a demonstrated success which is validated by external agency. Then the society at large will accept it. Especially your customer. We are into B2B space. The customer says that, how do I know that you are complying to the social accountability standards? So if you have a certification or validation from external agency, that becomes an accepted norm. So instead of talking in general, I would like to share our case study as to how we achieved that in EPL, or formerly SL Propac. So our promoter then, now it's a Blackstone acquired company, our promoter then is a very sort of people-oriented person, caring about well-being of people and all that. So most of the issues that we talked about were already there in our code of conduct. So it was a very comprehensive code of conduct, and we never went beyond that doing a separate documentation. So when we decided to go for the EcoVadis, because our customers were asking for it, they gave us a long list of what are the issues, and you should have a separate policy for each one of them, specifying what are the standards you are going to follow, what are the initiatives that you are going to do, and how do we measure your success. And once that is done, so that's the technical part of it, but then we have to go back and tell the entire leadership team that, look, we are committed, and your active involvement is very, very important. In your behavior, in your speech, this should be reflected. It's not about getting the certificate, it's about living that value. And so a lot of sessions we had to do with our, when I say senior leadership, is the plant leadership and we have regions, so regional leadership. Among the employees, we had to do a lot of training, because as I mentioned to you, in the context of labor law, some minor violation here is accepted fact for employees. So when we say that, look, these are must and we cannot compromise there, that sensitivity has to be developed through training of employees. So we use e-learning, we use face-to-face sessions, we use Zoom calls, and it's a procedural training. So you have to also make it interesting and ensure that employees are aware of what the standards are. And why it is important is that if there is a non-compliance, they are the best people to come and tell you that this is where we are not following the policy, or you are having this program, but it's not really meeting the intent. Then you must have a developing systems and processes and platforms to manage the issue. So obviously there are statutory forums like, in India, for example, there is a work committee, abroad it's called work council, then there are safety committees, there are canteen committees and all that. And most of us, how we have been brought up, is that that's a mandatory requirement, you have to manage the show, make some minutes and do it at that. Actually, we have to put a life to that. I think that should be a real forum where people can speak, discuss, and we have to make a lot of commitments in that. That's the first level of thing we did. Second thing what we realized, which is important, talking about all these issues is, we talked about reaching out sessions. So in our experience, in a small group of 5 to 6 people, if you hold a discussion and figure out what's going well with the company, what's not, what's the experience of people working with the company, what needs to be improved, People are much more frank, they are much more vocal, and then over a period of time, so what we said in the large units that we had, manufacturing units, employee should get 3 opportunities in the focus group discussions, 3 focus group discussions should participate, and small units, maybe once in a quarter that person should participate. People initially were very skeptical, but when they realized that this is a place where I say something, things happen. And then people started participating more and more. I also realized that there are a lot of people who are in their own world when they're working in the company. So that one person in a particular focus group I was holding, one gentleman talked about some issue, and the other said, I said, no, but this is sorted out. And we have put up a notice on that. They wanted some policy. It was a promotion policy. So we have already made a policy and it is visible. So somebody else clarified, yes, 3 months back this policy has been put up. You have not seen it. So many times it's not only the company and the workers, the people themselves start sort of clarifying these issues. So it becomes a very, very good forum. So focus group discussions or reach out session is a very, very powerful tool in our experience in driving this social compliance. And obviously you have internal audits and special audits. For example, in India, I asked one HR person of the one unit to go to other unit and audit and see whether things are working or not. So apart from internal audit, people should really go and check. One more thing which I'll tell you that in my reviews as the CHRO, I said, did you have this work council meeting? Yes, we had a work council meeting. Can you tell me what issues were discussed? So X, Y, Z issues were discussed. Okay, what was your response? So I said, do you have a minutes of the meeting? Can you open it? So they said, that a particular safety issue was not done, so training needs to be done. So we are taking appropriate action. I said, what do you mean by appropriate action? When is that to be completed? Go into details. Or if it is a canteen committee meeting, normal issues are in the night shift, the food or canteen food quality is not good. So we have given a feedback to the canteen contract. See, at an operator level, these are going to be the basic issues. So I said, okay, this is a very vague feedback. Can you say that within 1 week this issue is resolved, and have you taken a feedback and reported that? So when at a senior most level, when you take these kind of interests, then things start moving and people also start taking it seriously. That's what I mean by having mechanisms and progress impact. I already mentioned about it. So we also do pulse survey apart from the two-way communication. Town hall is a very, very well accepted system in our company. Once in a 3 months we have a town hall. The global town hall is attended by, addressed by our MD. The regional town hall are attended by the regional presidents. And we talk about the direction that company is taking, what are the business challenges, what we expect from employees and so on. Somebody mentioned in the earlier forum that if you only communicate during the crisis, people will not look at it seriously. But if you regularly communicate, good news or bad news or no news, regularly communicate with people, that has a good impact. Participative forum I talked about. Platform to raise grievances and highlights. So typically in our company, people would send emails to the seniors. If I have a problem, I would send an email. So I said that's not good enough. We should have a platform. So we introduced a system called Speak Up. So anywhere you seeing anything that needs to be improved, anything going wrong, you have a problem, please send this your complaint to the Speak Up system. Your name will be anonymous. So till then, anonymous complaint was not how to address that as an issue. So when we introduced that, believe me, initially there were not many Speak Ups coming, and we had to give them a huge confidence saying that we will not retaliate. And that was the psychological safety and retaliation. It's not about talking, we have to really demonstrate. And maybe 1 or 2 critical issues came without giving a reference to that person. We said this is how we are resolved in town hall. Now, maybe 30, 40 Speak Ups come, but 1 or 2 are really serious one, and we act upon them. External validation I just talked about, but let me tell you the journey here. So when we went for this EcoVadis, so it looks at not only the human rights and labor, they also look at environment, they also look at ethics, they also look at your procurement supply. So why I'm showing this slide is how tough is the journey when you want an external validation. So in 2019, we first appeared, our overall score was 38, in the pillar it was 40, not acceptable. So we got bronze here, I think. Next year, it went to 32, although our HR score remained 40. And then over a period of time, we have improved to 70 now, overall also 70. So we are, in terms of status, EPL Global stands for 94th percentile of positions in the company that are audited by them, among top 5% and among 3% in the plastic manufacturing company. So now when you have this kind of standard, it gives you a different reputation, and you really don't have to answer so many questions from your customers and your stakeholders. So that's the journey, very tough one. And let me tell you how detailed it is that we had policies for all, and they said that we want an overarching policy of human rights. We don't have that. So we had to make one more policy. That's where, we lost out here and then we made it here. So it's a continuous journey, but more than certification, I think we have to live this social standard, and that's where the real excellence comes. Thank you.
Request Mr. Atul Mathur, EVP, HR and Head Learning and Development to please join us on the stage and begin with the felicitation. Kindly felicitate Mr. Dileep Joshi, Global CHRO, EPL Limited. Can we have a huge round of applause?